My name is Kylie and I am a knitter, spinner based in West Yorkshire here in England, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today is the day I decided to film my first episode of a knitting podcast. If you've seen any other knitting podcasts here on YouTube, I think you have a fairly good idea for what to expect. I will talk about some of the stuff that I've completed knitting, so my FOs, finished objects, current projects or whips, and any sort of other shelved long-term projects that I've kind of been working on and off that I'd like to complete in the near future, and anything else that I sort of want to do coming up like in the next few weeks. You can find me on Instagram as Kylie Makes Things, and will hopefully be creating a new website and account called Kyack, which will be my own knitwear company, where I will be selling knitwear things. Hopefully I'll be able to talk about that in more depth in the coming future, fingers crossed. But yeah, that's all the introductions, and yeah, I think it's best to get on and talk about some stuff that I've completed knitting this year. I think it'll be best just for my own self to talk about my FOs in chronological order for how I remember finishing them. I will admit I am not the best person at cataloguing or databasing things, so I have not been a very good Ravelry or Instagram user, but I do post things and I'm gonna try and become better. So from my own memory, which is not the most reliable thing, I think one of the first things I finished knitting was a cowl, and this is what it looks like. Yep, it's just same old, and yeah, so this was using yarn, I think Malabrigo silk blended packs that was gifted to me for a birthday long ago, and this is a pattern called Leftover City by KACEY. Apologies for any mispronunciation of names of any designers or companies or people, sorry. But yeah, this was one of the first things I did. I started this I think a day before I had a trip to go to Glasgow, and basically I don't drive, so I'm the perpetual passenger, so which is great if you're a knitter like me and don't get motion sick knitting, because that's exactly what I did. I spent the majority of the time. I've just realised I'm speaking a mile a minute, so I'll slow down, rewind. So I spent the majority of the car journey to Glasgow knitting this. And because it's silk and something else, I can't remember what the full blend is. But it is the softest thing, and the thing, really, the kind of wool you'd want on your skin by your neck, where it's the most sensitive. There's no itch, it's extremely luxurious, and I think it's a really cool pattern. It is meant to be a scrap. My presumption with the name Leftover Cities, and just like having used it, my presumption is that this is meant to be a scrap busting style project, but I just really liked the design, and I had the wool which all came in this colour range, so it worked out really well. But yeah, I can try it on. It is middle of September right now, so it's not really the right weather for it, but here we go. I would most likely just fold it over in the middle. So it is really warm, and it's really Nothing but good stuff to say about this pattern. It's very easy, goes by really quickly. You can do it in 3 days maybe. I think that's how long it took me, really. But yeah, that was one of the first one of the first items that I completed knitting in our year of our good Lord, if you so believe in that, of 2023. Moving on, I think the next thing that I actually did finish is what I'm wearing right now. Can you even, oh goodness. So this is a vest that the name of it eludes me. Bad YouTubing, but it's too late right now. But it was a free pattern that was found on Dropscan Studio website. If you don't know, Drops are a very popular, very affordable yarn company, and they've got this huge database on their website of free patterns, and you can just do that, and I think you'll see that I use that resource a lot. So this is was a slip over vest. I think I can just haha, there we go. It's a slip over vest, which I've just kind of styled by tucking it in here. It's knit in cotton, and it's got a twisted rib on the sleeves and the front. It's got this really interesting front detail here that you can see, where as opposed to having a mitered V, it's just like a overlap, which I think works really well if you cannot be bothered to learn how to do a miter rib like myself. Yeah, I think it's a really good dupe if you are interested in knitting some of the popular slipover vests, such as the one designed by Petite Knits. God, excuse me. But yeah, I just didn't feel like paying for Petite Knits. Oh my god, why is that coming out so weird? I didn't particularly feel like paying for a Petite Knit. Oh Jesus, excuse me. For a Petite Knit pattern. It still came out weird. We're just rolling with it at this point. And yeah, this is what I made. The yarn that I used for this, excuse me while I get the label, is probably my most used yarn brand company, surprisingly, and that is Rico Designs, and this was their creative Lazy Summer Cotton in the bluey, pinky, yellowy colourway. There is no name on this label, but if you go online, I'm sure you can find it. And this was like my first time knitting fully with cotton, and it was great. The yarn is incredibly affordable, so like this didn't come over £10 in making it, just in materials alone. And it was like really easy. It was knit in pieces and seamed, which I don't mind. I knit a lot using a knitting machine, so I do a lot of hand seaming, and I learned how to knit flat, and you know, so hand seaming does not faze me at all. Okay. So the next pattern and the next object that I finished knitting actually uses the exact same yarn brand as this one, and also uses a pattern by Drops again. I actually do have the pattern to hand here on my trusty iPad, and that pattern was called Rose Whisper, and this one is a very exciting pattern for me to do because it was a garment that I'd never made before with knitting, and it was a dress, and it looks like so. And like I said, it's the exact same yarn as the one as my slipper vest. I will do some shots with this in between, but yeah, I made my own sort of summer dress. Again, it's cotton and it's this really lovely colour, which is just crazy. And I like just the tones, the reds, the yellows, the blues that are coming out through that. It's like, it means you just sort of don't have to choose a colour. when you're at the yarn store, you just got a wall of, well, you can just be like, I'll go for that one which has all the colours. But I digress. That, yeah, so that was a drops pattern, and this is knitted top down, and you begin by knitting 4 separate sort of shoulder pieces, shoulder V's, those ones here, and you connect them, and then you just sort of knit in the round with increases. There is a fun little detail where on the side where everything is in, can you see, garter, where the seam would be, which I didn't mind. I'm quite keen to knit this dress again, perhaps next summer, using a different wool, and I don't know how, whether or not I will keep to doing that garter detail on the side. I don't hate it, but at the same time, it's not my favourite thing. This was as much knitting and as wide as the amount, I think the number of stitches got somewhere crazy, like in the 500, 600s stitches by the end of it. It really didn't feel like it. At the moment I'm knitting stuff with about 200 stitches per sort of row, and that's a bit more painful than this, but this was my mindless knitting, mindless TV, gaming, knitting over the summer, and it really actually flew by super quickly. And again, because I used the Rico Designs Creative Summer Yarn, cotton yarn, it was again a very affordable knit. I definitely underestimated the amount of yardage required, and I had to go to the store twice, and luckily they had it. And luckily, because this is such a variegated wool, I didn't really worry too much about whether or not it was the right dye lot. I know for a fact it was 2 separate dye lots, but I personally cannot tell the difference looking at this, and I don't think you could either. It's great. 10 out of 10 would recommend. I am actually going to make another one of these as soon as I come across the right wool or yarn for it, really, and maybe do it longer. Like, yeah, this will fly by, surprisingly. It took me less than a month to knit, so all good. Okay, the next thing I think I did, so I've just realised that I did knit some socks in between all of that. I just haven't talked about it, but I'll do socks separately and you'll be fine. The next thing that I completed knitting would be my most recent garment, and again, it's a Drops Gone Studio design. If it works, it works, and it's free, which, you know, is economically the best decision you can make. And there is a bit of a funny story as to why I knitted this item, and that's because I wanted to practice doing laced yokes, because I purchased the ranunculus pattern, and I just also purchased some slightly more than what I would regularly pay for priced yarn, which I wanted to make especially for this ranunculus, and I just didn't want to ruin it. So I was like, hey, let's just get a free pattern which is somewhat similar, got some lace yokes, top down, that kind of thing. It was called Swing by Springtop, and this is what mine looks like. It is a black t-shirt, cotton tee. It's incredibly difficult to show off the lace detailing at the top because black yarn is the devil, and I stand by that, but it looks good. And that's what it looks like. Very difficult to show, and like catching any of that. So yeah, as you can see, it starts by, it's got a thick rib band, which is not twisted, but that's where your increases are. And then it's got this lace details, which I will admit, I'm not the most confident lace knitter. I don't have a great deal of experience with it, and as soon as I make a mistake, I have no idea how to fix it, and that usually is a deal breaker for me when it comes to doing lace. But yeah, I absolutely adored doing this top, and I adore the finished project even more than I expected. And I will be honest, I have attempted to do the ranunculus, hated the experience, frogged it multiple times, and to the point where I don't even want to look at the pattern. I don't even want to engage with it for some time. I'm just still cooling off from my I don't know how you can even describe it, but just knitting rage, let's call it. But this one was great. Oh my god, I would, again, it's a really comfortable top, and I'm really glad I went for the colour black. And that wasn't anything very specific, I was just using stuff from my stash. I used some cotton wool like this, which is off a cone, to knit with this, and yeah, that's what it was. It is incredibly versatile, and I would totally do this again. Yeah. Swing by spring. Whoops. I don't have any more finished garments, so I'm going to move on to socks that I've completed this year. I don't have all the socks because I've just kind of enjoyed gift knitting socks, but for my own personal socks, I tend to not just do a vanilla sock. I tend to try and do a fun stitch, a lace, or like a faux cable. But yeah, the first sock that I completed was this sock here, which is a 3x1 rib. The pattern is called, excuse me, no, oh god. It's called A Nice Ribbed Sock by Glenna, and this is a pattern that I found on Ravelry, and it was free, and again, zero complaints. It was knitted toe down. I tried to pattern match this as best as I could. This is the first time doing this, and I think I did a pretty banging job. Like, look at that pattern matching. These are twins, not cousins. But I don't think this is something I'm going to be doing with all my socks, but it's a real proper sock, and I really love it. For the yarn used, like I said, this is my most used yarn, but they're really good. This was Rico Design Superba Bamboo Superwash. This is the exact There we go. I really recommend this sock yarn. I feel like, story time, I feel like I've tried a good amount, not the biggest range of sock yarns out there, and my favourite thus far. And see if it's got a price in it. I think from memory this was about £7 to £8. It's definitely not more than 9 or 10. And I was able to get a full length sock. I still got some not waste, but I've still got some little scraps left. And it's just the softest wool ever. And it's not just the softness that I'm like saying, it's not like wearing silk or cashmere on your feet. It's just like a real supple drapey-ness to the sock. It's not too woolly, it's not too scratchy, it's not too dry, like the dry you sometimes get from superwash or acrylic. But it's just like such a good blend. If I wasn't on a, you know, odyssey to try as many wools and support as many companies as I could, I would just buy this brand, the Superba Bamboo Sock Yarn, Superwash Sock Yarn by Rico Designs as a standard. But, you know, life's too short to just eat one pudding. So, yeah. The pattern was great. It was, for anybody who was interested, it was top down construction, and you do a 1x1 rib followed by a 3x1, and this is what's the word, reinforced heel gusset type, knit down, and you just do the wedge toe as sort of classically expected. Bob is your uncle. 10 out of 10 would knit again. So now I think we're actually officially on the WIPs, works in progress, and a couple of them are socks. So the oldest work in progress that I still haven't finished is a sock, and this is the Hermione Everyday Sock by Erica LUEDER? Sorry. But yeah, I love this pattern. It's so good. I think I cast this on, I may have even cast this on last year. But the one thing that's really stopping me from doing a second sock is the yarn. So I used Lang's Jowl Superwash wool for this, and I am still so upset by this because I went to a centre in the Middle Leeds where you can find really interesting crafty things. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to put anybody on blast here, but I, you know, thought I was speaking to someone who really knew, and I said, hey, what are some yarn recommendations you have for sock yarns? Because this was supposed to be a gift, and I purchased this, and this was before I really knew much about yardages and sort of figuring stuff out. You get, you know, a little ball which fits into here with a little reinforcement spool inside it and whatnot, and I'd knit a sock for my mum, and I washed it, you know, just to block it out before I sent that present off, and all the colour just leached out from the sock, and it became so brittle and so like almost like acrylic, the texture of the wet wool was to me. And I was just like, oh no, because I'd spent £9 on the yarn just to make one sock. So you're telling me that to get enough wool yarn to make 2 socks, I'd have to spend double what I did to make 2 very good socks on here, and the colour's not even going to stay to the sock, and the sock is going to feel absolutely horrid after washing. So for that reason alone, I've really been hesitant on buying a second skein to do a pair of this, which is a shame because I think this colour is brilliant. I think it's beautiful. Oops. I think it's beautiful. It's very me. It's also very my friend who I was going to gift it to. And the pattern is actually really fun, and it was really intuitive, and it looks so effective. Honestly, look at that and tell me that doesn't look store bought. You know? But the wool really let me down. I do not think I'll ever be buying any more wool from that company. Unless it's a different sort of make composition. But I definitely won't be buying any more of their sock yarn, is all I'm going to say about that. So anyway, that was more of a rant than a review, so apologies. That's just how I am. Right, next work in progress. Again, sock edition. We're still in the sock aisle. Is that a thing? And this is what is a sock called? That was incredibly anticlimactic. So the next sock is Cowl's. Sorry, I'm just looking through my Ravelry, and it appears I may have even like closed down the tab, so, but hey. Great, so this is called the Togetherness sock by Little Home Designs, and it is a free pattern. I love a good free pattern, right? That I got from Ravelry. I will link everything down there, and I'll also link stuff that doesn't go directly to Ravelry because reasons. But so yeah, so this is a faux, basically it is a cabled sock, but I didn't use a cable needles. I sort of just fudged it with my DPNs, and it on the pattern tells you how to fudge it with your needles, so you're not having to have a third cable needle in the works. I love this pattern. I've just put it on a cool down because I was like overly cautious with the length of my sock. I don't know if it comes across in the video, but the foot is extremely long. I'll take this one, which is kind of like my foot size really, and then compare and contrast so you can see just how much longer that one is. And the only thing I basically need to do is to undo the Kitchener, rip back one pattern, repeat, do the Kitchener, do the toe decrease Kitchener, done, and start the second sock. And I just haven't got around to starting the second sock once I realised that I had that work to do. So that will most likely be the thing I do for next week, but we shall see. And the yarn that we're using for this is new to me yarn, which is crazy given that I live in West Yorkshire, but whatever. It's West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply, which is just like the most famous sock yarn in all of the yarn companies in the UK and online. But I don't know why, but I've just somehow resisted and like been able to get away with not buying it, but I did. And it's, again, looking at the price, it's £7.50, so that is incredibly economical. Cowl. I think you can get 2 socks plus some like scraps that you can use for cuffs and cuffs and ribs for other socks in the future, which I think is great. But this is a very sturdy woolly yarn. I can tell that this is just going to be the kind of yarn that will come into its own with wear and wash and use, and that's really quite exciting actually, because I like working with very soft, delicate yarns, which, you know, will never be as soft and as delicate as they were at the beginning. Whereas I think this is kind of a yarn that will really come into its own with age. A bit like me. I make myself laugh, I'm so tired. Gonna have a little tea break. Right. The next great big whip that I am working on is a very exciting one, because I had zero intentions of casting on this project. I in fact had to buy a pattern for this project, which is, I think you may get, that is very unlike me, to spend money unnecessarily when there's so many free patterns. But this pattern is, I just want to get the name correct. That's why I'm looking down here. I know it's why. It's the Stripe Hype by Veronika Lindenberg. Lindenberg? It is Lindberg, not Lindenberg. So yeah, if you're into knitting YouTube, you may know Veronika Lindenberg as KACEY on YouTube and on Instagram, and they're like someone I've really followed for a long time and have just kind of quietly, in my own little way, cheered them on their knitting career. But yeah, the Stripe Hype, I think, was just like a really cool pattern that was definitely in my radar, and yeah, I thought it was a really nice pattern. And one day I found myself at my yarn store, as the story goes, and I don't even know why I was there. I think I had a reason to be there, and I looked in the bargain bin, and I feel like someone has got a problem, and I ended up with a giant ass bag full of these awesome tweeds in these awesome colours. Oh, there's a brown here, I suppose. And finally, yeah, I just found myself holding these tweeds. Aren't they great? And they were all £2 each. I know. I spent less than 20 quid on, I've got another one here, and I think there's another ball in the actual project bag. Yeah, so and guys, can I also just point out as well that I've got a jumper almost completed. I've almost got a complete jumper. I've literally got a few centimetres of the ribbed cuff on the sleeve and one more sleeve, and this is done. I just have to bind off the neck, bind off this, do one sleeve. Bob's your uncle. Less than £20. Anyway, I think the jumper speaks for itself, don't you think? I think the yarn speaks for itself as well. Like it just somehow works, and I'm so grateful. Every time I think in the past I've purchased yarn from a bargain bin without a plan, I've always come to regret it because it just ends up sitting in my stash collecting dust, and I don't want to touch it because, like, you know, I'm gonna eat my words in a minute. I'm just gonna absolutely eat my words in a minute, but bear with me, I'm skipping ahead. But yeah, so my guys, like, I might put this on just for you guys, just to see. Can I put it on over? Yeah, I can't be bothered to. Here. So I knit the size medium in the pattern. Oh God. That was very smooth. It's a cropped fit for me, but yeah, I just want to get a little bit more length in the arms, get another arm in, hey ho. But I love this pattern. I'm so much so that in my next video or video coming up, I'll be talking about just how I've been inspired by it to do other creative endeavors. But there you go. Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about it. I think I'll go into the details of the constructions and stuff when it is a finished object in the next video. No pressure, Kylie. But yeah. For those of you wondering what the yarn is, it is Homespun DK by King Cowl. And this is not a woolly wool, this is a blend of a lot of stuff actually, which I thought was quite interesting, but I do think it kind of makes sense when I think about the characteristics of the material and the fabric created. It is a blend of fine merino, alpaca, polyamide, acrylic and viscose. It isn't a very, very drapey, very loosely spun wool, but I like it, and that's all that matters. So yeah, I think this is the only, I've got a caveat, that is the only it's the only acrylic knit garment that I've actually got in this entire stash. I predominantly knit with all wool apart from superwash for my socks, which has 25% polyamide just so that it washes well. But I don't generally tend to machine wash my socks anyway, so I'm now going to fully move on to knitting with 100% wool socks, which is a video that I'm going to, in and of itself, where I'll talk about things like that in full detail. But yeah, that's that. One more whip, and this is something I'm actually working on currently, and that is, sorry, things are getting tangled up in here. Oh goodness. Okay, I'm making a hat. This is a 2x2 rib hat. Yeah, I sort of am following a pattern, I'm sort of not, but if I to approximate which pattern it is that I'm using for this, for any of those of you that are interested. So this, like, I would recommend looking at the free pattern on Ravelry. We'll link the non-Ravelry link as well down below in the description. It is Ribbed Beanie by Emily BALDUAN. BALDUAN? I should stop with people's names, that's really rude. And again, once I was like in the headspace of buying West Yorkshire spinner wool, I went all out. So this is the Colour Lab in DK weight West Yorkshire spinners. This is 100% wool and the colour is Storm Grey. I almost went for this green for this hat because I think they're dyeing them all the same for their solids, and I didn't, and I don't know why, because I really like a bright colourful hat, but I can just see this being like really cool once it's like done. It's sort of my mindless knitting, but also really kind of just like I need to knit because I can't sit still kind of knitting. It's small enough to carry around. It's still too hot to be carrying a jumper around to cafes and things like that. So this is like palette cleansing, but I kind of want to get it done. I'm sort of bored. So I might just, after finishing the stripe hype, I'm going to try and power through this and then do this for next week. Fingers crossed. I don't want to have anything else to do, but there you go. But yeah, I did mention earlier that I was going to be eating my words because about bargain bin yarn not ever being good. So I have another long-standing languishing project that I want to complete, and the reason I said I'd be eating my words is because the yarn was a bargain bin find, and it's again a yarn that I've now come to just absolutely adore, and it was a way for me to sort of force myself to try something that was quite popular. I don't know if you remember, but like I feels like this time, well not this time, but like last year in the winter, everyone was like raving about that Lopi and using Icelandic wool. And I remember I went on holiday once and ended up in a small town called Tiverton, which had a really fantastic yarn shop, and they were selling these balls for I think like £3 something, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna buy like everything you've got. They had 4. I was like, I don't care. The colour is really friggin' cool. It's called like the Milky Way something or other. But anyway, it's like blues, pinks, reds. I don't know if you can tell this, but blue is clearly a colour I'm obsessed with. And yeah, I sat with this for quite some time. And then in the month of August last year, I don't know if you remember what happened, but we had some of the hottest weather, heat waves we've ever had in a long time. And I just thought, yeah, that's about right time for me to cast on Icelandic wool and make an Aran jumper. So yeah, there you go. I started making, that's backwards. Started making an Aran sweater in this colour. And yeah, this was fun. I loved it. This is the first time me doing all over cable. I've done the front, I've done the back, and I've done one arm. But I think I finished the arm. Oh, look at that, just what the heck. Anyway, I'm very excited for this to be completed. It's all, as you can see, in pieces. But I think I finished this roughly in February of this year, and I just was like, I can't look at this. I definitely needed more than the 4 skeins that I purchased initially. But I would love to finish this for this winter and to have an incredibly warm and incredibly intricate piece of knitting that I have done. So this is going to be the next thing I like out of the entire whips. This will be the last thing I pick up, and it's something I definitely want to finish by mid-October, late October latest, because I want to wear this so much. But yeah, I think that's like pretty much it. I'm not much of a acquisition type of person because I have a huge stash and I've started spinning, so I'm creating more stash of yarn for me to knit from. But it was my birthday 2 weeks ago, and obviously people know me very well, and I was gifted this awesome skein. And this is Vivacious 4-ply by Fiber Spate Yarns. And it's like, yeah, it's superwash, 100% superwash merino. It's a really good colour. I'm thinking I use it for some colour work, like a yoked colour work thing on like white and green, lime green. I think that would look sick. But I have no plans. But I just wanted this to be known that I was gifted this, and I'm very excited about it. Yeah, the colour's called Gecko, which is great. I love it. But yeah, so this video is almost 50 minutes long. I'm not going to edit it at all. I apologise for that. My passion lies within knitting and fibre arts, and not sitting in front of a computer for a long time. But hopefully I can learn to develop the patience and the skills to do it efficiently and create better videos for you in the future. But this has been my first knitting podcast. I hope I was somewhat entertaining. I don't think I was incredibly informative. And I hope that like you enjoyed what I had to show you, and I will see you next week. Tazar? Is that a thing? Tazar? Alright.